Good afternoon, everybody. It's V, the Gorilla and the Economist, coming to you live on another edition of our special Hanging with Harley. We got the one and only Harley Schlanger, the man who needs no introduction. He is one of the most clairvoyant voices in the world today, somebody that I consider an absolute expert. I love it when he's on, and I love just listening to him. So, guys, without any further ado, Harley, glad to have you back, sir. What is going on in the world? I mean, so many things, my friend.
Well, we're hours away from a change that the deep state does not want to see. And it's
Yeah.
clear from everything we've seen in the last period from November 8th at about midnight on, there's been an effort to overturn what happened. And the problem is that they don't understand what happened. They
Correct.
won't let themselves believe that there's a revolt against their rule.
Right.
And this is typical of an oligarchy or an empire that's in decline. They're too stupid to know that at a certain point the peasants won't allow them to rape their women and kill their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a rebellion that's worldwide. It's not just Trump, it's worldwide. And I don't know if you saw any of the coverage of the Davos conference.
Yes.
We had two phenomena there. One, you have Xi Jinping going in saying basically he's prepared to save globalization. But he said he's going to do it on terms that are good for people, not for
Right.
the corporations.
Right.
So they ignore that, and they're sitting there saying, what do we do about this populism? Now, what's labeled populism is not really populism. It's anger, it's frustration, it's a sense of being mistreated, treated unjustly, and people are rebelling against that. And they're rebelling against it in the only way they can, by going to the ballot box. Now, that's supposed to be the way we work. You know, Obama keeps talking about our democracy. In the EU, they talk about our democracy. But if people don't vote the way they want, there's no democracy.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
what we'll see with the inauguration tomorrow, we're already seeing it, is the unleashing of what LaRouche called a color revolution. And that's Putin said the same thing. Putin said they would like to pull off a Maidan Square operation against Trump to keep him from becoming president.
Yes.
Now, that's an insightful comment because you have the Soros network. Soros is finished if Trump does anything that he says he's going to do.
Right.
But Soros is funding a revolt. You've got a bunch of young people who really don't know their rear end
Elbow
from
from
their
the
elbow.
rear end.
Yeah, they don't know it. And they're being manipulated the same way young idealists in Ukraine were manipulated to go out and get killed so the NATO forces could take over that government. Now, they're going to try and do the same thing here, but look, they failed with the Electoral College. They failed with their Russia did it ploy. Then they came up with the most cheesy thing yet, you know, this sex scandal of Trump in the hotel with a prostitute.
And you heard what Putin said about that, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the interesting thing is that it all goes back to Britain. You know,
Yeah.
people who used to say to me, why do you guys keep talking about Britain, Britain, Britain? Well, if you look at the chronology here, go back to the first Gulf War. It was Maggie Thatcher who said she stiffened George H.W. Bush's spine to go into Iraq in the first place. Blair was the one who got Bush Jr. Actually,
Yeah.
he got Clinton to do the bombing in the Balkans and then Bush Jr. to go into Iraq. It was Cameron who was working hand in glove with Hillary and Obama on Libya. The Yemen situation, the Syria situation, this is all British intelligence. And when Putin disrupted it by freeing Aleppo from the terrorists,
Uh-huh.
the Obama Western terrorists, and then on top of that, Trump won the election, they went crazy because they
Yeah.
can see they're losing their power. Now, this is why one of the things that we're doing is insisting there be a mass mobilization for Glass-Steagall. And we're
Yeah.
saying to these leftist characters, listen, you guys like Bernie so much? What do you think Bernie's doing? He's calling for Glass-Steagall. He said he would work with Trump if Trump called for Glass-Steagall.
Right.
So let's call Bernie on his word. Let's bring Elizabeth Warren in and say to them, look, you want to deal with Wall Street? We can bring them down with one blow with Glass-Steagall.
Right.
And if Trump were to do that and then go with an infrastructure program funded by government credit, so he would be creating jobs, productive jobs, doing good things. If he were to do that, he'd be bulletproof because it would be doing what the people want him to do, providing work and taking on Wall Street.
Hmm.
So there's a way out of all this. And I don't think people should get too worked up about these nut jobs that are going to run around tomorrow saying the election is illegitimate and so on, because most of the American people don't buy that. They didn't buy the Russian hacking story. They didn't buy the Trump sex scandal story. They didn't buy the Obama's the great hero story. And the media is working so hard to put that one over.
Oh God.
So,
Oh God.
so I think, look, we're looking at a whole new universe of potential opening up starting tomorrow afternoon. And we can't let Trump drop the ball. I don't think he's going to. I think he's been very firm in the way he's dealt with these things. I hope that his handlers don't take away his Twitter account because I think that's a necessary tool.
Yeah.
But I think to supplement the Twitter account, he needs some real substantive events to occur, like Glass-Steagall, like a meeting with Putin. He should send someone over to this meeting in Kazakhstan next week, where the Russians, the Syrians, the Iranians, and the Turkish government will be starting a peace process, and some of the Syrian so-called moderate rebels have joined. Now, Obama tried to sabotage that. It didn't work. So the Russians said to Trump, why don't you send Michael Flynn or someone over? So I understand that's being considered by the Trump people. It would be a real step toward rapprochement with Russia, toward a common effort against terrorists. And I think that's really the important direction to go.
I agree. You wrote a very important article, Harley, that's put out all over, Germany, Netherlands, Finland. Could you describe that a little bit? That's taken away the mythos of this false Obama narrative of him being this great hero who rescued the economy.
Well, I just took his own words where he's been saying wages are up, household income is up, the economy is booming, point by point, and refuted it. The fact is, most of the things he said are not true, and the things that he said are evidence of a recovery, namely housing prices up and the stock market. He said retirees' income is up. Well, that's because of the stock market bubble. As soon as that pops, they're going to have nothing.
Right.
The housing bubble is already popped. You've got, I think it's a third almost of the 18 to 34-year-olds are living with their parents now because they can't afford housing. The student debt, 16% of the people who have student debt are already in default or delinquency.
Yeah.
So virtually, I took all of these categories, but then I went to the deeper question. What is the future going to require? It's going to require scientific breakthroughs. It's going to require new technologies. Look at China with the high-speed rail, with the space program, with work on nuclear fusion energy. That's the direction of the future. Now, what are we doing to our workforce? We took away their jobs that pay them. We put them all in part-time, temporary, or low-wage jobs. We're working them to death because people have to work 3 of those jobs to survive. The healthcare bill is a catastrophe. And now we're seeing growing rates of suicide and suicide by drug and alcohol poisoning of a large section of the young population, the people who are going to have to be the productive workers of the future.
Right.
So Obama's economic recovery has been a catastrophe for this country. 5 million manufacturing jobs lost. I believe it was in the last 10 years. A workforce which is almost 70% out of work. If you take the full workforce, you look at this and you say, where's the recovery? Where's the media? Oh, they're busy tracking leads from a British intelligence guy that Trump had 2 prostitutes peeing in a bed.
I mean, and meanwhile, Trump's he's a germaphobe. For anybody who knows him.
So, what I tried to do, I've been meeting with a number of Germans recently. I had a very interesting meeting with someone who is a German leftist, but who is someone who is in Eastern Ukraine providing humanitarian aid, and he was attacked when he called for lifting the sanctions. They said he's anti-American. So he's now saying, well, if Trump lifts the sanctions, then I'll be the one who's pro-American. And all those other Germans who were attacking me will be the anti-Americans. And he got a great kick out of that because it's true. You've got Merkel as the one force, and to call her a force is a strange conception, but the one oligarch left standing.
Basically, Adolf Hitler in drag.
Yeah. And you have these ironies, like the New York Times last week had a headline, while Trump reaches out to Putin, U.S. troops land in Poland.
Yeah.
So you see the insanity to the last second of the Obama administration. Samantha Power doing another one of her broomstick routines in front of the United Nations. And through it all, Putin has remained calm. Xi Jinping was masterful at Davos. Then it was followed up by Jack Ma, who said, look, you guys screwed up globalization. You had an enormous opportunity to expand trade, and instead you were more interested in making quick bucks.
Yep, exactly.
And what Xi Jinping said is that it's not globalization itself that's the problem. It's the way it was run through financialization.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely right. So look, Glass-Steagall put the banking system through a coordinated, organized bankruptcy reorganization, wipe out the derivative debt, write it down, write it off, whatever you do, it should have been done several years ago. And then once you do that, then you can start putting people to work doing things that will be good for the economy. And this is what the Chinese are doing. And V, I meant to send you a link to this eating crow article in The Economist this week. Maybe you saw it. They've been saying over and over and over the Chinese infrastructure plan is a loser. It's going to cost them too much. It's going to collapse their economy. And now they had a new report that said, gee, we were wrong. It's actually producing new wealth at an unprecedented level. So these kinds of things are not going to be lost on Trump.
No.
And he had his guy Scaramucci in Davos to basically say, don't be afraid of Trump. He wants to do the things that are right with Russia. He has respect for the Russians. He has respect for the Americans.
Right.
And if you Europeans straighten out, he'll work with you. So I can tell you, I've had a ball watching the squirming going on the surface over here in Germany from the interview Trump did with Bild Zeitung and with the London Times.
Yeah.
But after they squirm about, he said NATO's no good. And I said, well, what's NATO doing? Oh, yeah, you're right. He said the EU's no good. Well, what's going on with the EU? It's collapsing. Oh, yeah, you're right. And after a while, they're very happy. And the only question they have is there someone in Germany who could do what Trump did? Because the so-called populist parties, like the Alternative for Deutschland, they've stolen some of our planks, like Glass-Steagall and things of that sort. But I don't trust them.
Yeah.
They refuse to talk to us. But there are openings around the institutional layers in industry and business. I think once the United States gets moving under Trump, we'll have the opportunity to transform Europe. And the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians are already there. So
speaking of the Indians, man, I just read a great article. I think it was on global security. And it was talking about Modi, right? The fact that what the heck is this guy doing? He's this whole currency thing that he's doing. I mean, it's almost going to lead to genocide. There's like reports of starvation coming in. I mean, this guy is. I mean, and also the latest news also came out that that this whole entire currency cancelization was a plan done by some Atlanticists within his administration, especially the guy who is in charge of the central bank that's in India. Yeah. The guy is a University of Chicago stooge, yeah. And this is leading to people that are literally starving at this point. Harley, like, what's your take on that?
I think it's an attempt to sabotage what he's done positively with the BRICS, and I think he was sold on it by some people saying, "Look, we got to take the criminal side out of the money system. We've got to make sure it's under control." And, you had Joe Stiglitz at Davos saying that we should do away with money, do away with cash. We should go all digital.
Hmm.
So there's a big push in this direction. But I think in the case of India, there's an effort to destabilize Modi. Look, they've tried to destabilize Putin. They've gone after Xi Jinping,
Yeah,
uh,
Joseph Zuma.
Zuma, and they were successful at bringing down Dilma
Doma.
Rousseff.
Yeah,
And look at what's happened there. Brazil is in chaos.
yeah,
So if you listen to these guys and you go along with them, you end up with regime change and chaos. So people like Modi are going to have to fight it, and he's going to have to figure out what's going on there. But we should keep an eye on it because that's what they're talking about. What if the euro goes? What will be done in Europe? And Stiglitz said, well, if the euro
prosperity.
doesn't work, get rid of it. And yeah, austerity and digitalization.
Hmm. And it's funny they say bring out digitalization. Of course, the digitalization that they offer is things that are in their control, and that's the
Of
problem.
course, of course.
Unreal.
Well, they're running out of things they can control.
Yeah.
If I just think it's interesting again in Germany where you had the media constantly attacking Trump, and then after this interview last, I think it was Sunday with Bild Zeitung, which is the largest circulation publication in Germany. It's out of Munich. The guy who did the interview said, I expected some wild, unprepared guy lashing out, and he was very calm, very straightforward, and impressed me a lot.
Right.
And then the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, which is the main business journal in Frankfurt, backtracked a little bit, saying, well, maybe we can work with Trump. You see Theresa May trying to get on his good side, the British Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Even Merkel, there was a story in the London Times that Merkel's calling Trump every hour trying to arrange a meeting because she's nervous. And
And
I look at yeah, we
Mother
got Phil
Melody
Merkel
should
on
be
the
nervous.
phone. You want to take the call? And Trump said, nah, tell her she's fired.
She's going to be fired. She is out of control, man. Did you hear that meeting between her and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, where they were,
No,
plotting on, being the
oh, yeah, on the false news thing.
yeah, unreal.
Actually, this is, I'm glad you brought that up because a couple of the people I met with this last week in Germany were saying that the main thing about this is to intimidate the opponents, to
Yes.
create an intimidation factor so no one will speak out.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
you
Because of
see that,
fear.
yeah. And you see that with the efforts by Obama. I don't know if you saw his final press conference, but he was kissing the rear ends of the press like you wouldn't believe. It was unbelievable. But he started the press conference talking about how much he loves George Herbert Walker Bush and Barbara Bush.
Oh God, good rid. It was an acting guy that both of them wound up in the hospital at the same time. Harley, I am praying for a swift and painful demise for both of them, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm just happy they won't be going to the inauguration because seeing them there would take away some of the celebration.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely correct. It's unreal, unreal.
Well, and then
But
just the other thing to report is that there's interesting news coming out of Syria in terms of the reconciliation process, the reconstruction process. The Chinese are going in, they're talking about what they can do. They're sending in an engineering corps. So the Russian victory, or it's actually the victory of the Syrian people aided by the Russians,
hmm
can be a turning point. And we're seeing also in Turkey the government working very closely now with the Russians, making some concessions on the Syria question. So we could be seeing a brighter day. Now it's not going to come without some setbacks, and I expect some terrorism, and people should really. Donald Trump should be very cautious about who he has around him.
Yeah,
But I think if he can stay alive and he can do some of the things he seems to be committed to, and keeps people like Scaramucci with him. Scaramucci is an interesting character because he comes from a hedge fund background and Goldman Sachs, and yet he actually wrote a book attacking the Gordon Gekko model. I
right,
don't
right.
know. So it's interesting to see this. I mean, maybe there is some virtue in some of the people who are being brought in,
Yeah,
given that they are now being told, here's the mission: clean up the mess, drain the swamp, get rid of the
exactly.
neocons. And one final point on this. I was really delighted to see an article which said that the people who signed the two Never Trump letters were whining that they can't get a meeting with Trump. And one of the people I talked to around the Trump circles was saying they called him untrustworthy, bigoted, a Nazi, a liar.
Right.
Why would Trump sit down with them? And
Exactly.
he said, do we have a blacklist? Yes, we do.
Yeah, correct, and rightfully should. And I also love the fact, Harley, that Trump is going to allow the alt media and bloggers to be present for the White House press conferences.
And I heard the other thing they were starting a rumor to scare the press was they're going to start drug testing reporters.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah. So
Oh my goodness.
we have a lot to look forward to as the year is beginning. But it really, our side, our forces can't be content to see a few bad guys get the feet pulled out from under them. We've got to clean up that mess. We've got to stay on this question of Glass-Steagall, infrastructure investment, Hamiltonian credit policy, and for the U.S. to join with the BRICS, join with Russia, China, India, to establish a new basis for realizing the common interests of mankind. And
Absolutely.
if we do that, we'll be all right.
Absolutely. Harley, thank you so much, my friend. It's we've come to the end of the broadcast. Why don't you give out your contact info, how people can get a hold of you, how can they can follow you, any of your social media, anything you got, brother? Go ahead.
Well, I'm getting some emails from some of your listeners. So if people want
They
to
love you, man. They love you. Believe
well, if
me.
you want to communicate with me, just send me an email at harleysch@gmail.com. And also go to the LaRouchePack.com website. I believe there's a
Absolutely.
page for me under the Get Active. And we are circulating a petition to Trump on Glass-Steagall, which is
Fantastic.
something that a number of people are getting involved in. So that's something else people should do immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Harley Schlanger, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us again, sharing your insights with us. It's always an absolute pleasure and an honor and a treat. It's like the best fireside chat without actually being by the fireside.
Yeah, well, we'd be by the fireside here if we had a fire. It's quite cold in Berlin these days.
And what is the temperature out there right now?
Let's see, it's -5 Celsius,
Oh
which is
my God.
about 10 degrees.
Woo! Yeah, you got it worse than we do, man. We're wow, nowhere near as cold as that. That's for sure.
It's cold. It's cold. And I don't forget, I lived in Texas for 30 something years. So this is,
How are you adjusting out there? I mean, being the Texan, being out
well,
there.
I left my boots and hat at home. So I'm doing quite well.
Good. God bless you, man.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so
Okay, we
much.
catch you next
And
week.
yep, yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Take care, Harley. God bless. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe out there, man. Bye bye.
Okay.